Emergency Services District Number 2 encompasses all of San Jacinto County, not included in San Jacinto County Emergency Services District Number 1, as the excluded area is described in the order of the Board of Fire Commissioners of the San Jacinto County Rural Fire District Prevention District, dated August 20th, 1990, recorded under volume 113, page 746, official records of San Jacinto County, and take comments from any interested individuals. So, petition's been filed, petition's been looked over. I think that it looks like it's in order as far as preparation of the petition. I passed it on to the county clerk and it's filed, and we had a little hearing up here to set this date. And since that date, the statute required the clerk to put a little notice in the paper. That's all been done. We've got an affidavit that says it's done. She did her job the way she's supposed to. So, I don't know how many people want to talk, but normally on public hearings, everybody gets like 5 minutes or something. If everybody here will be here till this afternoon, I don't have any idea how to gauge that. But after the public hearing, we'll move to the next item, and then we'll, after considering everything, we'll decide what we're going to do. Which one of you gents wants to be the ramrod? Or go first, so to speak. Tell everybody who you are.
My name is Jamie Grosdorf. I'm here to represent the voters and property owners.
Put your speak louder.
You're here to represent who?
I'm here to represent the voters and property owners of the area that is not currently covered by ESD 1.
I still don't think they can hear you. You might have to move the microphone closer.
All right, my name is Jamie Grosdorf. I'm here to.
I don't think you represent all of them,
but the ones that signed the petition.
Yeah, okay.
Are
you a lawyer?
I'm not, sir.
I'm just asking. Okay, go ahead.
We are going to present the reasons why we brought this petition and why we think it's a good investment for the county. Before we start, I'd like to just kind of gauge the room to see how many people are here for this particular process. So can I get whoever's in favor of this to raise their hand if they have statute expanding this? And whoever is opposed to this? Mr. McGrath, your address is 300 Hayden Road. I don't believe you're on the property for this particular petition. Hayden Road starts at 400. Okay, you want to start off with...
He's talking about he's not in there. I got an email yesterday from Vicki Shelley. She initially peeked over, but y'all didn't provide a very good map that had street names and all that on it. So she says, June 24th, I have received map from Waterwood with the streets listed. I have not reviewed it for accuracy at this time. So what we had was a map that didn't have the street. And you know, if Mr. Jones lives on 123 McNally Boulevard, she's got to be able to, and her intensity about doing the job right is heightened. Y'all may not realize it. First time ever we had an election contest filed, and they have been, anyway.
Yes, sir. I've been working with
you. Understand what I'm saying? It's got her up to here.
Yes, I met with Ms. Shelley earlier this week, and we provided the information that she was requesting.
Okay, but she said I have not reviewed it for accuracy, so I doubt there might be a few more that might not, but I think you're at 138. You only needed 100.
Correct.
So I think you're golden on that.
I agree.
She's not going to be doing anything for the next 2 weeks. God bless her soul. She's on a mission trip to Congo or somewhere like that. Left like last night. That'll give her time to do the Lord's work and clear her head and And, so anyway, go ahead, sir.
Okay, we want to start with the history of how we ended up where we're at on this. And this is your slide up here. So these dates are, kind of a timeline of what happened and why this is this area is kind of has this opportunity and this kind of burden to solve this issue. So the Rural Fire Prevention District was established in 1989. There was a predecessor to that was a more loosely affiliated system. But when they created that, the Waterwood Municipal Utility District up in Waterwood, which encompassed this entire map area at the time, decided that they provided fire services already, and so they, under the state statute, they opted out of the Rural Fire Prevention District. That basically defined the map that we're looking at right now, as it removed it from the future ESD when the Rural Fire Prevention District rolled into the ESD in 2001. So Waterwood's been, Waterwood Improvement Association, the Homeowners Association of Waterwood, has been providing ambulance services since 1984 within that community. And the Waterwood Municipal Utility District has been providing fire services during that period as well.
Don't y'all collaborate with the ESD #1 through a mutual aid agreement, and they actually fund the bulk of the total cost, and y'all pay, how much do y'all pay a year?
So we pay, well, depending on what you're talking about, we have a fire budget and we have an ambulance budget, but we don't have a contract or an actual agreement with Emergency Services District #1. We have our own agreements that are cooperative with them, and we benefit from those relationships, and so does ESD1. In our opinion, they've expressed that as well when we've met with them.
I just want to, we've talked about it, you came and brought everything, and we've talked, and I told you the first day, my personal only concern is, I asked you how much revenue this thing was going to generate. You said, I believe you said around 100,000.
On the tax value, that's about right, about 100,000.
Yes, sir.
We also have 12,000 roughly.
Well, that's the only, that's, I want the Waterwood folks to have whatever they want, but I don't know how they're going to pay for it. It's the problem.
I can explain that if you want to take the time on it.
I do. Because my pea brain, what do y'all pay? What do they pay ambulance guys? I'm guessing 50, 60,000 a year.
Yeah, we contract with the same company that the San Diego County ESD1 provides. We don't pay the individual salaries of those projects. We pay a contract rate.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
they're not going to do it unless you pay them enough.
They pay $18 an hour, and one gets paid $20 an hour.
There's an EMT and there's a paramedic rate. So
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
One's 18, one's 20, the way it was explained to me.
Okay.
And I think they'll pay $97,000 a year
Correct.
from y'all's contract.
That's the fixed
Let me
rate.
tell you how my simple math is. I know that, don't you have two guys on the ambulance?
You have a medic and
And you got a morning tower and an evening tower. That's two shifts. So that's 4 guys times, let's say they make 50,000 a year. I hope they make 50,000 doing what they do. That's 200,000 a year right there. You ain't bought nothing yet. So,
We're not requesting to have a permanent 24 hours, 24/7. So we have a range.
That's not what I understood.
No. We have a range of options. We can leave it where it's at, where we pay for a 12-hour shift of the ambulances. And
Yes.
we are benefited by the fact that the ESD1 calls that ambulance out on a very regular basis, probably 2/3 of the evening if that shift is in effect.
Ambulance company, when they get called out and they got insurance, I guess they get paid.
Yes, so the typical rates that they get paid, the insurance gives them a particular rate and they offset some costs.
So I have a quick question. This is me asking you. So when the ambulance is stationed there 12 hours a day, right, at y'all's facility in Waterwood,
Correct.
the next 12 hours, are they going to be stationed in Evergreen where they don't have one?
No, so the way,
Hold on, man. Why wouldn't it be? Because you're only paying for a half a year. So why wouldn't they be somewhere on the other half?
so we work with the ambulance service and we chose a particular shift because you can't have half of a shift and move them around and split that cost. So we pay for a 12-hour shift.
Well, why couldn't you have half shift? You don't think that there's a difference between Waterwood and Oakhurst
Well, there is in the tax base.
on a time frame?
Yes, I agree.
So all people are important too. And I think that if you're gonna do this, just as my opinion, you're paying for a half a year. So you think the people in Waterwood deserve a half a year?
Sir, I'm trying to explain
Or the
how
people in San Jacinto County deserve a half a year?
we don't pay on a half a year basis. We pay every day. We pay a 12-hour shift.
Well, if you figure out what the ESD pays, they pay 600 and, I got a note down right in my book, 600 and something $1,000 a year.
Correct.
$651,480 a year. And y'all pay $97,000
So
a year.
they get 60 hours worth of coverage out of that, and we get 12. Of which our 12
You're right.
is donated or called to service the ESD area. So whenever there's a say that there's an ambulance in Shepherd, one in Cold Spring,
So
or
how
one in Waterwood.
often are they there? What do y'all expect?
Well, they show up every night at
That's what we're
7
asking.
o'clock. So every night they show up at 7 o'clock unless there's some event in the county where they need an ambulance. And that's outside of our area. They get called however they get
If
called.
they're there 12 hours a day, last time I checked, that's half a day.
Correct.
But they're not there all day.
But they mutually, they go to wherever there's a call. So we'll take a look at that one ambulance, the half that Waterwood pays for and the half that the ESD pays for.
Yes.
12 hours a day that is stationed in Waterwood, unless there is an event. If there's zero going on in the county, the ambulance is sitting there in Waterwood. If there is an event in Shepherd and that ambulance goes, ambulances get moved down to kind of spread the load. So it goes
There's
out
a
of
call,
Waterwood.
they respond.
Correct. So
That's good to know.
we do that every night, pretty much. Okay, I mean, there's a few nights in the middle of the week where they actually stay there 12 hours because it's sleepy and there's nothing going on in the county. Fridays, Saturdays, they're always gone. You know, there's always something going on in the south part of the county that has pulls the northern stuff south.
Carry on, sir.
Okay.
We just want to, our biggest concern is the economics.
And make sure everybody's covered. That is my biggest.
Right, and so
So what happens here the first of the year? If I walk in there and I'm the people over the ambulance, and I walk in there and say, we can't do this contract for that, we're gonna go up, we're gonna have to double it.
okay, so we have options. We don't have to work with ESD1. We like working with ESD1. It's mutually beneficial for them and us, in our opinion. But we can go to any number of, there's 4 or 5 ambulance services within a response area of our region. Those responses might end up being 20 to 40 minutes instead of 5 to 15 minutes. But it's entirely feasible for us to do that. The rough cost on a per call basis, where we were basically just only paying no standby rate, we were just paying for a response whenever they can afford to get somebody there. That's roughly $2,000 per response. And that we can subtract out whatever the insurance pays for that. So on average, that would be about a $1,500 bill for each of those ambulance calls. Last month we had 1 call. So we paid $10,000 last month. That benefited ESD1 greatly because they, or maybe 9,000, on whatever the math is on 100,000 a year. That benefited ESD1 by having that available for roughly 50 calls for ESD1, where we're only getting the 1 call. If we wanted to go to a response only, our outlay would be in the roughly to $30,000 to $40,000 a year range. So the feasibility is there if we wanted to reduce the service level to where we had a longer response time. So there's entirely, there's a range of options that we have. We would like to stay where we're at, where we benefit. We pay for the standby fees for that ambulance. So there's a resting cost, and there's the money that the ambulance brings in on calls. And so adding another ambulance would cost roughly $750,000 because the number of calls in the county does not go up if they add a 4th ambulance. The calls will stay the same. So there's no offsetting costs by increased calls. So that's the rough cost of an ambulance with 0 calls is roughly $750,000. So you pay a standby cost, and then it's offset by the revenue that they bring in by people calling ambulance services. And so there are districts adjacent to San Jacinto County where they pay 0 money for their ambulance because they have so many calls that it just covers the entire cost. They pay 0. They cost them nothing. Well, there's areas like if Waterwood were trying to operate independently, completely, we want to have our own ambulance there, it's going to cost us $750,000 a year to have that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought you were trying
Yeah,
to do.
no, we understand that, and we have options, but we like where we're at.
But if to have it 24 hours a day, costs, you said 700,000.
We got a couple of quotes from other agencies, plus the one we use now.
In my mind, if you're only gonna have it 12 hours a day, that's 350, 100,000 revenue. Who's gonna pay the difference? The
So-
250,000.
So again, the reason it's there for 12 hours is we're helping offset the costs for ESD1. All right, we pay a shift for the ambulance of what the cost is that is not covered by the call outs that it goes on. So as an ambulance is called out, the standing cost, which is roughly around 100 for us, a little bit more than that for ESD1, why those costs come down as the
Are you telling me every time they get called out, they're gonna knock something off your bill? Is that?
well, they average it over time and they factor that in the contract rate. So our contract has not gone up in 8 years because the number of call volume has increased over time as the county's grown a little bit. So, there's math involved. There's standing costs and there's revenue generated by actual calls. If San Jacinto County was completely quiet for a year and nobody had any ambulance calls, they would come back and want a different number for those contracts for us and ESD.
How many folks intend to speak? Because we only got so much time. But I have to leave at 11:30. We've got a good hour and a half, but I'm just checking.
Finish up.
Go ahead, sir.
Are there any other questions on the ambulance?
No, sir. Thank
Okay.
you. Not me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we'll move over to the next slide for feasibility here. So beyond the $100,000 estimated tax revenue, there's an estimated $12,000 that we currently get in donations for the fire department through the mud district. It goes on the annual billing. The ESD1 has the same type of thing in the districts, the water districts that they have. And that's a consistent amount every month that comes in. It's roughly, like last month was $1,043. So over the course of the year, it's roughly $12,000. The association has created a binding resolution to fund another $70,000 a year annually to make sure that we maintain the level of service that we currently have. Again, there are options if the revenue were lower for us to reduce the amount of response time and services, but we want to keep working with the county. We want to benefit ESD1 at the current level that we do.
Do y'all have to fund the fire costs up there as well?
Yes, we
do. They do it strictly on their own, their fundraising?
No, we pay roughly $45,000 a year on the fire department. Of
So
which,
what you're talking about, and that comes, when you say we, who you talking about?
this is, we currently funds both services.
Are they gonna sign some sort of agreement?
They do. Let me-
Convince them to keep doing that from here on out for the fire?
No,
I thought they were pushing this to get out of paying.
they are. So ESD2, if created, would provide the fire services and the ambulance services in this entire area.
I
There's,
don't think you can pay for the ambulance, let alone, that's why I'm asking about your
Well,
other sources of income.
we currently do, and we provide that at the same level that we,
I understand they do. They got several $1 million in the bank, but they want to get out of paying it. That's what I understand, is why
So-
we're here.
so for funding, we feel like we're funding a slightly increased level of service than the general part of the county does, and that's why we get that ambulance every once in a while when it's not being called. Instead of being sitting in Point Blank, it sits up in Waterway. The other 12-hour shifts, it sits in Point Blank, so it increases our response time, but we benefit each other that way. But again, we can operate an ambulance service for roughly $40,000 at the current call volume, and we can operate the fire department at a slightly reduced budget.
How can they make money if they only get paid if they only have one call? I don't know how they.
Well, again, if we don't actually hire an ambulance service to come to Waterwood and stay at all, and we don't, right now we do that because it helps offset the cost across the board for the entire county. And that was set up years and years ago. We pay for.
If you're offsetting the cost for the rest of the city,
We are.
there's 30,000 people in the county, there's 300 in Waterwood. And y'all are getting the ambulance there half the time, and you think that's helping the rest of the citizens?
Financially, we're helping ESD1 provide that sixth shift on 3 ambulances. So
Okay.
we do pay for that.
I got you. There are 3.
Correct. If we were to stop paying for that and we let ESD1 pick up that shift, and we went to a response-only basis, whether it came from an ESD1 ambulance or whether it came from Polk County ambulance or whatever, or Riverside ambulance, which are our options.
Yes.
That $100,000 that we paid for that ambulance shift would then get moved to the ESD1's budget. Okay, they would have to cover that because that shift is not being paid for anymore. Now they would have the same number of responses.
So they would collect the 100,000.
No, they would just have to pay for that because we don't have a tax. We're asking to put this tax on it so that we can contribute to that.
I'm just saying, if.
So if we were to shift to a response only, where we just said, hey, Waterwood is only going to get an ambulance whenever we make a call. We don't have anything to do with a contract on it. All we do is we have just a response only.
There are counties that do that.
There are plenty around here that have that.
I don't think Polk County has any.
So if they do that, what ambulance service would y'all get in Waterwood to come?
We could contract with any of those four.
Which one would you get?
Depends on who gives us the best rate.
Okay.
But we currently
Polk
talk.
County, Walker County.
So we've discussed this with ESD. I mean with Allegiance.
So you think Polk County? So what would be the response time to someone laying there having a heart attack?
From Polk County?
Yes, sir.
Well, the response time for a head injury recently when the ambulance was in Shepherd was 47 minutes.
Yes, sir.
That happens. It does happen still. But we try to offset that as much as possible so that when we do have our snake bite last month, it was a 6-minute response time. Those average, right?
What happens if they're in Shepherd and Waterwood has come over? What's the time difference on that?
To go to Shepherd? Well, typically.
47 minutes.
Well, typically, if there's.
We're all county residents.
Right, I understand. Typically, in Shepherd, when Shepherd gets a lot of activity, a lot of those calls come from the Shepherd area in the south area with the growth that's there. I'm sure you're aware. As that ambulance gets sent to a hospital with a call and is no longer available, usually the Waterwood ambulance will shift out to Point Blank. The Point Blank ambulance will shift out to Cold Spring or wherever to average out for the county. So that, I mean,
and if they're out of county, the ambulance service is supposed to send another one in.
They do. They come from Polk County or they come from other adjacent
They're
areas.
supposed to.
They do. I'm at their meeting. They come regularly.
Anyway, they're supposed to.
Yes. But as far as your question on where we would get a response from, depends on who we contracted with. We would like to contract with the same company. We're happy with their services. We're happy with our cooperation with ESD1. And we're paying that standby rate for them to sit there. If we didn't pay that and we just went to them and said, all we're going to want is a response from you, whether it comes from in the San Jacinto County system or whether it comes from the Polk County system or not.
If you still look at the way I look at it, you're still getting half a year for $97,000. No,
That's roughly
they're there.
That's roughly what the ESD is getting as well.
Let him finish his.
John won't let him.
But
We got to make an informed decision here, ma'am. If we don't ask questions, I'm not just.
I agree.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm just.
No, I want this out there. It's a complex issue, and we want to make sure that there's a complete understanding of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the low end, we can get an ambulance service from somewhere else if we have to. We want to keep it like it is. We feel like it benefits ASD1. It benefits
Go
our
ahead,
residents.
sir. Go ahead.
One of it's going to continue, make sure the same level of service is there.
Yes. Yeah, we do have a binding resolution here from WIA to add $70,000 as well on top of the $100,000 plus the $12,000 to make sure that we provide that same level of service and cooperation with the county. If the new ESD board, which if created, we would have no input in, that would be from your appointees.
May I ask a question now? How long do they guarantee that for? How many years?
That's
20,
at least 5 years.
Until it's all to.
Yes.
So after 5 years, is that going back to the county to pick up the case that fails?
No, we actually, the board decided.
Answer that. No.
The board decided that we were going to support this indefinitely, but on legal advice from our attorney, that we should have a sunset to renew. This is something that's typical in most of your contracts. We discussed this with Commissioner.
The thing about any government contract is if you budget yearly,
Yeah.
you got to get out every year.
Right. So this, I mean, we're not saying that that's going to be the last day that we commit to this. This is something.
The Property Owners Association, and it's the same people sitting there that are a member of that as they are. So they have an incentive to stick to their agreement. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I mean, there's no intent to try to make this proposition.
We don't want to be 5 years later if it flops. Well, man, what were that guys thinking? They should have did right. Go ahead. Tell us more about it.
Well, so let me address that particular point here. So once created, ESD two is in this small area. The ESD two and the ESD one can get together and make changes or become one single unit, one single solid unit if they wish.
I agree. I did a little homework myself, mostly reading what you provided. It seemed like when they first opted out, the area that's not in ESD one is roughly 7,500 acres.
Roughly, yes.
And years ago, some large landowners in the non-ESD one district area, let's just call it ESD two, proposed to ESD two, they spent quite a bit of money to get out from underneath Waterwood's flood district and all that, because they own acres, they probably ain't getting the sewer service and the water, and they had reasons to do it. We've had comments from a few that at one time owned right about 6,000 acres of it, 4/5 of it. They don't want to be part of this, so if they don't want to be part of it, why try to cram it down their throat?
Well, when we first decided that we were going to look at this whole issue as far as our budget, because this roughly, depending on the year, is 15 to 20% of our budget. So we decided we need to find out why, where we can make smart decisions on this. So the fire department belongs to the mud district legally. That's their authority. They requested in 1990 to remove themselves from that district, and they were committed to provide those services. In 1997, they asked the association, because of financial hardship in the mud district, to cover those funds. And we've been funding that, as the association has been funding that for 27 years. And so we want to return that to the mud district where it rightfully belongs. When we went to go do that, we realized that there was the annexation in 2005 that removed 6,000 plus
I'll
acres.
make you listen to my question. If they don't want to be part of it, they didn't spend all this money to exculpate them from the Waterwood area. Why don't you just let them go? I don't know if it's been done, but I've been told that they file an application to join the ESD one.
I understand that as well. So we were, yes.
Supplement.
Go ahead. Who are you?
My name is Ken Campbell, sir, and I represent emergency services districts throughout the state of Texas. I represent probably 200 plus cities and counties. On
Who do you represent here, though? You're not.
I represent the Waterwood Improvement Association.
Okay.
And one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of those properties, when the disannexation from the mud occurred, they inadvertently fell into the ESD 1, even though they were not in that political subdivision. But they were paying the taxes.
That's history. I want to know why you want to hold on to them. If they're going to have spent money to get out and they want to become part of the ESD 1, why let them go?
We can adjust the territory, Your Honor. You can adjust the territory. The districts can do swaps, and they can go into ESD 1. It's just a simple agreement between those two political subdivisions in order to allow that to happen. You could ultimately have a merger.
Why don't we do that now? Why don't you let them out?
But we can't let anybody out. The petition is filed and the boundaries are set. And so the point of being here today.
You telling me, how long you been practicing law? About 40 years?
How long?
40. I'm guessing about 40, just like me. You're telling me there's no way to amend your pleadings at this point in the game?
No, there is no way. Once the petition is filed, it is set and it is fixed. And you can't withdraw it. There's certain circumstances where you can, but that's not here. That's just the way it is. And at the time, we were trying to make sure everybody was going to make sure that they were in an ESD. So we, as we've been doing the cost sharing between ESD2, between WIA and ESD1. It's a cost sharing agreement on EMS and stuff. And more to the point, if these folks are left out, then they may end up with nothing.
Where's he at?
No EMS.
They don't have one period in Polk County.
And this is not an annexation by Westwood Mud or WIA. This is a vote by the people to see whether or not they want to tax themselves and hopefully get a higher level of service, because there are more revenue streams than just the property tax. There's also sales tax. And so
let's hear some more about the more revenue streams. That's my main concern. I don't think we can afford to do it.
They're gonna have the
You're
same amount of
counting on
money, if not a little more.
ESD one to carry through some mutual aid agreement, and they may not, that might change, you just don't know. We have to make sure, our job is to make sure this thing is feasible, and I'd sure like to hear some more about the economic end of it.
Okay, well, one last thing on the petition. We did call 4 town hall meetings. We contacted everybody that we could get a hold of in the areas that are not within the association. We did get a good response from that area. Several of those families.
You had those meetings, did they all sign up and ask, and sign a pledge to donate to funding this?
No, they signed the,
Please tell
there's,
us something about your revenue stream that your attorney spoke of.
okay, well, our revenue stream is the tax that we're asking, for if the ESD2 is created,
Yes, sir.
which is roughly $100,000 a year.
Yes, sir. Got that.
We have the consistent and dependable $12,000 a year from the mud districts. Okay, we have $70,000 commitment from WIA, which puts us to 130 or 40% of what the current costs are to provide the service. So we've been providing these services since the 80s at the budgets that we've had. It's entirely feasible to maintain exactly what we have. The rates are actually coming down slightly on ambulances, or they have not been raised.
Yes, sir.
Their costs have increased substantially on the ambulance side. We have extensive talks with them, but the number of calls in the county has increased, and that has offset them. So, whereas it used to take 100 calls a month to cover an ambulance for zero cost to the districts, and now it takes 150 calls, right? But that's what we average 100 calls per ambulance in San Jacinto County per truck.
So if I understand this, if they got 100, 150 calls that are like insurance and they get paid, and somehow that makes it where y'all have to pay, I don't understand that.
So if we kept 3 ambulances currently in the district,
Yes, sir.
and another 100 calls a month average started happening, as growth happens, and there's growth coming.
Yes, sir.
As those extra calls, if we went from a 300 average to a 350 average or a 400 average, then the standby costs, which are roughly 100,000, 120,000 a truck, something in there, depending on where you're getting them and how much
What's
they
the call basis? What's the call volume now?
300 in the county, roughly, on average.
In the county?
Yes. And that's because we integrate with the county system, and that's why we're using that as the basis. We have a seamless, we don't have, when they call it dispatch, they don't say, hey, send, call Waterway and get a mutual aid. It's just, from their perspective, it's all uniform as dispatching goes. The only difference is that instead of it sitting in point blank for 12 hours, it starts off the day in Waterwood, or it starts off the day where it's called, if there's a call immediately, or when the county shifts its levels of coverage based on how much is being going on in the county at that particular time. So, we integrate seamlessly with ESD1 on the ambulance service because we contract with the same ambulance service, and we're providing one of the standby costs, which is roughly $100,000 to us. That standby cost is expected to either stay the same. It could go down if the call volume goes up, but that's a trend. You can't guarantee that's going to continue to happen.
Yes.
So, from a projection standpoint, we have 130 or 140% of what our current budget is, with the trend showing that those costs are either going to stay the same or possibly go down a little bit. As we go to, we were giving several examples from the same ambulance company that ESD1 uses, where they have districts in other counties that have very active districts, and they pay nothing for their ambulance because it's completely offset by the insurance from the calls. And that's
Pay nothing. That sounds.
well, we thought that sounded pretty good too, but that's what they tell us. As they get that revenue.
There are no free lunches though. That's some of that.
Well, the districts hold a little bit of a card on that because they can, if they're providing 175 calls per truck every month, that is going to pay the ambulance company a lot of money. Well, they can get bids from other ambulance companies. That ambulance company is still going to. That becomes an asset. Those calls. I mean, I know it's morbid, but those calls become an asset that the ESD district can leverage to keep those costs low. Currently, our experience with Allegiance, which is the ambulance company, they're very fair. They're very transparent. They tell us what their costs are and what we need to do to stay where we're at, and we feel pretty comfortable going forward that this is sustainable.
Okay. Have anything else?
That was your question. We can go, just go.
There's 20 people behind you.
I understand. Yes, sir. One other aspect of this is we're a homeowner association. We do a lot of the things just like you commissioners do. We take care of problems that happen in the community locally. We're not focused 100% on providing these emergency services, whereas the emergency service district board is. That's their entire job. And there have been times in the past where the Waterwood Volunteer Fire Department has struggled to keep staffing, and it's something that we feel that if there's a dedicated board on there, that would help that.
We'll take care of who goes on the board.
You do. It's entirely important.
that.
Yeah. We feel that would be a better situation to remain laser focused on keeping those services at the highest level possible. Whereas you guys have had to deal with many disaster issues going on recently, your ESD1 board has been able to focus on keeping those services.
I think they do a good job.
I think they do a good job as well. Like I said, we did have 4 town hall meetings where we called everybody we could, and there was one person that had a little bit of a question. That person has now signed this petition. So we did not have a lot of negativity on that, and we did not hear from the people that are complaining that they're included in this map. So we, upon advice of ESD1's director, their manager, they wanted everybody included in this district. So when we reached out, we wanted everybody's input. We had 4 town halls. We did everything we could. We reached out directly by email. We had many of those members from the part of the property that you're talking about did come in and did support it, and they have signed this petition to move forward. We feel like it's not really a good timeline for them to come in after the petition is set and then say that they didn't like what they got, even though they were notified several months and multiple times to come and voice their opinion. There's no reason for us to want this issue.
Well, then you want to tax them, and they don't want to be taxed. They spent good money to not be involved.
It's my understanding that they're asking ESD1 to become part of their district, so they are wanting to be taxed.
Listen, their reasons for not wanting to be part of Waterwood are unknown to me. Everybody ought to get what they wanted if at all possible. I see no reason why the ones who want to be in it ought to be in it, the ones who don't.
Well, we had that same opinion in January when we asked everybody to come to these town halls and give us feedback on what they wanted. We could have easily amended that.
Well, they didn't respond to the meeting, so they're just SOL.
Yes, sir. We came and met with you several times, or 2 times.
You met with me once.
Okay. We discussed
You
the
and
reason.
Lisa.
Yes.
Lovely and delightful, Miss Lisa.
We came and discussed our reasons for this before this petition happened.
Sure.
We gave you the opportunity to have a discussion about it. Once we created that.
Behind the log, I told you the first day. I told you, I asked you.
Yeah,
The question was, how much money are you going to have to do this with? And are you going to be able to afford it? That's all I really care about. I don't.
Well, on affordability, we've gone over that, but we do feel that's pretty.
Yes, sir.
But as far as the petition timeline, once we handed that to you on April 4th, we had not had any negative feedback at all from anybody. We have reached out. We spent more direct contact attempting to try to contact the people out there than we did with the people within our association, because we wanted that feedback.
Okay, you made that point.
Okay.
The time is, I still want to hear from everybody else.
I understand, yes, sir. Roughly the petition contains 30% of the entire voters' roll list within this area. That's a very, very high percentage. We feel that that's a good indication of the support we would have at the November election. Again, we have the ability for the ESD boards, if they were formed, to move properties. If somebody has a good argument that their property is close to the Point Blank Fire Station and they'd like to be swapped with that, the ESD board that you guys appoint can easily make that happen. And I don't see any reason why there would be no support for that, but we can't speak for a board that doesn't exist currently. We would make that deal today if that was something we had input on, but that's something you guys have input on. The people you choose make those decisions. So to me, there's areas that as part of ESD1 that
I think the ones who want to be in ESD1, I think they have to petition ESD1 to do that. I don't think we decide that.
They do.
I'm no expert on that, but that's what I understand.
Well, ESD1 would have to have an entire district-wide election, which is most of the county, which would be fairly expensive. I'm not speaking for ESD1, I'm just saying it'd be a little bit expensive for them to go down that versus having an ESD2 created where they could just then, in a boardroom, say, hey, let's take this 100 acres and move it to this 100 acres. It makes sense. We have hundreds of acres that are literally.
I don't want something to be done in some boardroom where my constituents don't have a say.
Well, that's what
it's a political subdivision, so it's public meetings just like.
Yeah, it would be something that
Well,
would.
that ain't what you implied.
Well, I apologize, sir. Again, I'm not a lawyer.
Go ahead. Please be quiet, let the man speak.
So, just to summarize the feasibility, we've committed to offset any gaps that are in the foreseeable future. We've done all our due diligence that we feel like we can to see what the foreseeable costs are to maintain service level. And we can operate at half the cost if we were to take a lesser level of service that's still entirely acceptable in the norms of service. But we feel it would not be beneficial to ESD1 for us to remove that funding. So we like the relationship we have currently with them, and we think that should stay the same going forward. The fire station, we 100% own that, and that would be completely available to the ESD2.
Say we, speaking for
we own that. Yes, and that would be.
Pardon me, but did somebody tell him to just turn the AC off, or am I the only one that's about to burn up in here?
You put a fan back there, but you could not hear, so the doors were closed so the people in the back could hear. I can move the fan up here if you want me to.
No, that's fine.
Turn it on, we can't hear
Put
that.
up sheet metal all day Monday at 105. I can take it, but I see everybody, go ahead. Forget about the heat.
Yeah, no, I'm almost finished, sir. A part of our bonding resolution on that $70,000 is that we do maintain the current level of service and cooperation with the county. If the ESD2 board chose to go with a much skinned down version of what their services are, then we would be able to revisit that and say that we still want to support that. They could stay at a lesser level of service, and they could still afford that with the $100,000 of the revenue. It is something that they could do. We don't want to see that. That's why we're offering them a lot of money to keep the service at the high end. But feasibility-wise, it is entirely feasible for this district to operate at $80,000 a year. So again, we have we relinquish control of all these services to the new ESD board that your Commissioner's Court appoints. So this is something that we're not grabbing anything. We're trying to set this up with a new entity that is county run by you, the people of the Commissioner's Court. So this is something that we are just trying to move from an HOA to a county-run service that's under a state program. It offers some insurance benefits, some cost savings, and it removes the liability from our HOA that an ESD is exempt from on certain liabilities on calls. So we as an HOA, it's very unusual for an HOA to be funding these services. So that's one of the main reasons why we're looking at starting this new proposed district, so that we can move that to a proper authority, so that they have.
Okay, you talked for 45 minutes.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna let somebody else talk. Anybody else here that wants to talk? What's your name now?
Tana Davis.
Hannah?
Tana, T-A-N-A.
Tana.
Tana.
Nice to meet you, Tana.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And I am.
Put the microphone down. Yeah.
You have to go way down. I am a full-time resident of Waterwood, registered voter precinct 4. And I just have to say that I am really shocked at the negativity and just the fight that we've had to implement this program, Chapter 775, Inform ESD, that the state has laid out roadmaps and guides and encouraged rural districts to do. That being said, you mentioned in your own words, or I'm paraphrasing, you want the constituents to speak, so please honor our petition and let it be on the ballot. As a member also of the POA, and I'm the liaison for VFD and EMS, I read the reports, and I feel like words have been twisted, And if people didn't understand the ambulance agreement, they would think that Greedy Waterwood is parking an ambulance here for 12 hours and they can't respond to anyone. That's kind of you imply. It is rarely in Waterwood during our contract time. That's just kind of a place that they're based quite often. And I've read reports of a head injury and it was a 45-minute response time because it was in Shepherd and Cold Spring during the contract hours. We get that. We understand that. We're just trying to help ESD one. We hope this is formed. We understand that there's tax money. Right now, we have nothing. We have nothing to fund an ESD. It's very hard, if not almost impossible, to get homeowners insurance. We pay a lot for it. That would help with that as well for the people that live here full time and or own property here. But we'd also love to help fund the emergency responders. They have kicked into gear with the ambulance, but we're just living in a very curious area, and we're underfunded. As everybody is, but we need this tax money. We do understand that. If nothing else, let it go to the voters. I urge you to do what the kind gentleman prayed to open this meeting, like make the right decision for the Lord to give you guidance. Let the people who live here decide on this, please. Yes. And it'll be balanced out. And if the constituents who don't live here full time, that own a lot of land, vote it down, then we can respect that. But if you don't allow it to go on the ballot, that's going to be a really hard pill to swallow. Let us please vote on this issue.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Young lady? What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Melissa Gill. I've lived in Waterford for about 3 years now. And recently I had to call an ambulance in April because my mom's blood pressure was 28/54. She had a blood infection, and that ambulance was staged at Waterwood that day. They got to her in 5 minutes, and they were able to save her life. She would have died if it was 47 minutes out. I think you guys are missing that this is a primarily aging community, and we are going to need these services. But also, it is under my understanding that this, if taken to the voters, would be voted on by registered voters of this carved out district. So if you all are making a decision based on, it doesn't matter how much money they have or how many acres they own. 1 or 2 property owners in this carved out district, I'm not even talking about the association, because this isn't about the association. This is about taking it out of the association's hand and putting it in the hands of the state where it belongs. I mean, I plead to you guys to take this to the area vote that's been carved out for ESD2. I can accept if it's voted down, 100%, majority rules. That's the way the government's set up. But I feel that you should give us an opportunity to allow the residents that are registered voters, full-time people that live here, not people that just have land to just ride around on or a vacation home, people that actually are affected day to day by having the fire service, the ambulance service, all of the service that are required for full-time residents. That's all.
Well, I saw a gentleman raise his hand. All the ladies spoke. Do any more ladies need to speak?
Please, you guys work a lot better
Not,
than we
we'll
do.
call some gentlemen in.
We want to see the outcomes of 1, 2.
Vicky.
No, that's right.
Oh, good. A lot prettier than I am.
Yes, ma'am. What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Nancy Stewart.
Is it W or you?
S-T-E-W-A-R-T. I am a registered voter. I have resided in San Jacinto County full-time since 2018 and in Waterwood since 2021. I, like the other folks here, would like to have an opportunity to vote on the Emergency Services District. I support the effort. I am a signer of the petition. We moved to Waterwood from Lakeside Village. Lakeside Village has always struggled with being right on the edge of the county to get really any kind of response. I know that from having called the sheriff's office and animal control, but I've been fortunate enough not to have to call for an ambulance. They do have, at Lakeside Village, a very active volunteer fire department with a lot of volunteers, and I truly appreciated that when we lived there. But now I live in Waterwood, and we would like to have the opportunity to vote on this district. Thank you.
What's your name, young lady?
Good morning, my name is Annette Lamoureux, Lamoreaux.
Lamoreaux.
I'm a registered voter in precinct 4 and I vote. I also happen to be an attorney. And I have on 2 occasions, once for myself and once for my husband, who's now deceased, had an occasion to make use of the emergency services in Waterwood. My husband had a stroke when I was not home. Ambulance came and he was ultimately life-flighted to Conroe, or to the Woodlands. I fell and broke my leg. I had an ambulance came to take me ultimately to Livingston and then to the Woodlands as well. I understand why the court is concerned about the revenue stream, but I would like to point out, if you look at the folks sitting behind you, many of them, like me, are on Medicare. I turned 65 at the end of the month. Yay, right? I am now a Medicare baby.
Turned 65 when?
They May.
I did on May the 5th. So
Okay, May 31st, all right? So I'd like to point out that my husband, who had a stroke, was also on Medicare. I paid $125. The $50,000 life flight and his ambulance was all paid for by Medicare. My health insurance paid for my ambulance. So to Jeannie's point, that why it is that you could end up having a zero cost would be that all these folks on Medicare will have their emergency services paid for by Medicare.
Right.
So I think it's not, the math is not difficult.
No matter what district you're in, or if you're not in a district, if you call for an ambulance, they're gonna come.
Well,
It's been represented that, oh, if y'all don't vote for this, the ambulances ain't gonna come get you, a scare tactic, and that's not true.
Okay, but the point is, Judge, if you look at the law, and I think you're a lawyer as well, Judge, if you read the law, the decision before the court today is to decide whether or not to put this on the ballot.
Whether it's feasible.
Well, it's feasible to put it on the ballot.
Whether
There's
it's
nothing,
feasible
no,
to
excuse me, Judge, if you ask for people to comment, let me finish, please.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So, if it's feasible, there's nothing that's been told today whether or not this is not feasible. There's not a single thing you've heard that indicates this is not feasible.
Ma'am, you're assuming that we believe everything that he said.
Okay, well, it's all been, why would we not be telling you the truth? And it's all been the petition, I believe, is,
I have a little,
Judge, excuse me, let me finish.
ma'am, you asked me a
The
question.
petition, Judge, was submitted
Don't put
as
your
an
hand up in
affidavit.
my face, ma'am. Go ahead and finish your
Hey,
thought.
you interrupting me and you're talking over me and you're not letting me
Go
finish.
ahead, ma'am.
Okay? The petition was submitted, I believe it's an affidavit. You had affidavits submitted, and there's nothing that you've heard today that indicates this is not feasible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Oh, well, there's another lady. Go ahead, ma'am. What's your name, ma'am?
Melinda Ramirez. I have lived out here since 1998. What we are asking for to be put on the ballot, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt anybody to have this on the ballot, and all we want is people to vote. The people that live out in Waterwood that are not here today fighting for this, just put it on the ballot. If you don't get the ESD 2, we don't get it. But just put it on the ballot. It's no skin off your nose.
job of doing.
I was looking for the young man. I
Yes, sir.
don't think there was a young man back there wanting to talk.
Tell me your name again, please.
My name is Keith Caulfield. That's Caulfield. I'm here with my lovely wife, Cecilia. And I like your shirt, Mr. Faulkner.
Yes, sir.
Now down on Winnie Street, we can actually bring those out of the closet.
Absolutely.
I wanted to thank all you guys for what you do. I'm the vice president of the WIA board. So I'm here kind of in a quasi-official capacity, but it has not been my job to do ESD. I've been working with Commissioner Latuno on disaster for about 2 months solid, and probably got a couple more months in there. Mark, you've proven to be a reasonable man. I'm glad to work with you. And I am living proof of the advanced demographic of Waterwood. I'm about to hit 70, so, but I'm an engineer, so I deal in facts and I deal in, less emotion than the ladies. And that's okay. We need them. Just ask Miss Cecilia. But anyway, what we've done this morning is to try to do a couple of things. We did not want to bring you a rehash of the old arguments that you've heard 2 or 3 times so far. We've been over those several times. But I'm in my first term on the board, and we have to do a similar job as you do. There's a zillion things coming from a lot of directions that hit us every day. Everything from a downed tree to a light out in the bathroom. We don't deal in quite as important stuff as you do, but we get we have similar type lives. You guys are about 10 times more involved and more important stuff than us. So we know where you're coming from. We knew that for us to try to run a fire department and an ambulance service, it's been working okay for all these 27 years. But like it's been said today, it's not the right thing. We shouldn't have to worry that we're distracted by a light bulb or a tree down or a sinkhole and have somebody out in Waterwood get hurt or perish because we weren't putting 100% into the stuff that's important, which affects people's lives. It was that, among other reasons, but that's one of the most primary reasons that we wanted to not grab power, as some have worried. We wanted to relinquish power. This is not a power grab by Waterwood over anybody. We want to get power to the right organization that the state and the county have available for us. That's why we wanted to set up ESD number 2. Relative to the property owners who are not all that happy with becoming a member of ESD number 2, for those people I say, we have presented a reasonable, not too difficult option. Given the fact that our map is fixed, we could not change it once the petition was submitted. We understand there's people down towards 190 who don't want to be a part of ESD number 2. With the help of our lawyer who knows ESDs, we've uncovered a reasonable solution for that won't keep these folks in ESD number 2 any longer than they have to be. Once it's set up, ESD number 2 can do a land swap. That's a highly technical term, I know. But we've got a bunch of acreage near Waterwood that probably by all rights would be better in ESD number 2 if those people would want it. And the two boards could arrange a land swap quite quickly once the boards are formed and they take power. So, the only other feasibility thing that seems to be a question for you to decide today is whether financially we can keep up with the budget.
That's the key issue.
Well, to me, the math seems quite clear. We have commitment to provide up to and augment the tax budget with WIA funds for at least 5 years, up to 30% or so more than what our budget runs now. The other thing I would say is for 27 years, WIA has provided 100% of the budget. We have the wherewithal to go beyond those numbers if it comes out to be.
I don't doubt they've been paying it. They haven't been paying the tax that everybody else has been paying, but they've been paying something because there's no free lunches.
Exactly. We've been funding 100% of the whole 9 yards. If need be, there's no HOA board in the world. If the numbers got to be higher than what we projected, would ever turn down life-saving services for their residents? Guys, that's a recipe for disaster. Now, can I make promises for the WIA board? No, I'm only one member. But if it comes up 3 or 4 years from now, and there was more money needed, I guarantee you, even if the entire board turns over, and it's a whole different set of 9 people, there's no way they wouldn't.
The board's
make
already
that money
pushing
happen.
this to get out of it, so what makes you think they want out? It's the message I get.
We want out of the decision-making process, but we are still willing and already committed to provide big chunks of money for the ESD. We're actually asking for taxation without representation, kind of. Why? Because it's the right thing to do.
Let me point out, there is one alternative. You say there's only one way to do it. If, hypothetically speaking, if this isn't, this doesn't get passed or found to be feasible and the petition's denied, I, for one, I'm only one guy too, I can only speak for me, but if it got turned down and a more palatable petition was presented that just put people in there that wanted to be in there, those who don't want to be in there, leave them out. That, I don't think we'd even be having this discussion right now. I'm just putting that out there, sir.
Well, again, we certainly considered that. Unfortunately, the state law and the state rules for putting the petition out and asking for a ballot, once that petition goes in, if you change it, you're basically kind of retroactively lying to the people who signed the petition. So they just don't let you do that. If we could have changed it, you bet we certainly would have.
I agree with that. I haven't seen any out where we could actually do that on this petition. The lawyer says you can't do it, I believe him.
Well, the other thing is, again, we've provided a reasonable out for them to get exactly where they want to go soon after the district's formed. I don't see why the objections of a few people should override the will of the voters of this district. I've learned one thing in being a part of WIA. WIA can vote on stuff all day long, and it holds a little bit of weight, I guess. But the true power out in our subdivision is when all of our people vote. There's no power like that. Once their decision's been made, you might as well bring a big giant gavel down and slam it down on the table, because they're the ones that really have the power. I don't understand why reasonable men like yourselves, and you all seem reasonable, would step on the necks of the voters of this district. That's wrong. Even if it gets voted down, the people have spoken. That's the power. I don't think you should stop the process before we're ever able to vote. That is a fundamental disservice to the people of our district. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Got a short lady up here.
Yes, young lady with the red shirt. What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Carol.
Carol
McGee, M-A-G-E-E.
McGee. All right, I like that name.
And Betty is research, and we do come from the same area, Mississippi.
That thing will come out of there if you want to hold it.
Oh, I don't want to hold it. It's steady. I turned 77 tomorrow, so. But no, Greg and I are not related. Betty research back. My experience in the fire service, I served in the volunteer fire department in close to Katy for over 10 years. I was asked to join or to form an auxiliary last year, and we have quite a few auxiliary members here today if they want to raise their hands. And we have some recruits that I am so proud of that I just couldn't even be more proud. I get those guys to stand up. These guys are going into it with the same enthusiasm that I did over 30 years ago. And they are just eager to learn and serve their community. And I think their example is going to pull even more and more volunteers in. So I'm here to ask, just give us a chance. That's all. Just give us a chance.
Thank you, ma'am. Justin, what's your name?
My name is Marvin Lutz, L-U-T-Z. I recently joined the volunteer fire department for a reason.
Any relation to Dale?
No, sir. Don't know Dale. I had a situation with my grandson at my home. I live in Waterwood. And he picked up a little flower that fallen off a vine and smelled it. A few minutes later, he broke out in welts. Then he passed out. My wife's on the call with 911. We're trying to get an ambulance. The 911 operator told me it would be over an hour before an ambulance would be at our house. She recommended we jerk him up and get him to the hospital, which is what we did. So I've been on the other side of that equation you referred to. And I haven't seen anything happen that would change that equation here in the last year. Nothing's changed, nothing's moved closer to us, everything seems to be going south. And that's what started all this conversation with us, is trying to establish this agreement. So we're just asking you guys to give us a chance to look at it. Now I know there are some financial questions, and I think those questions could be addressed in a one-on-one meeting to give you guys satisfaction that this budget could be made whole. To get, we don't have to do it in a commission's meeting, because I think a lot of details you might be missing that could be
You
brought
may
up.
not realize that's a whole lot of what we do up here is budgets. Our budget's $12 million, and we deal with millions of dollars with the FEMA. Some of the math just don't add up to me, but I'm just one guy. But that's all.
I would certainly welcome the opportunity to have, one of those one-on-one meetings, go over those numbers, so that you are comfortable with this particular budget. And I don't know how the process works, because I came from the private industry, and I also managed many large budgets. So.
I'm glad to hear there's a binding. Is there actually a written binding resolution? Or
Mitchell, can you get up there and talk about that?
Well, Matt, I'm going to
Let me ask.
Well, there's other folks back there that want to talk. Go ahead and finish yours.
Let me be right back.
I'm good with where I'm at right now, because I would like to turn it over to these guys that can speak more on line, get an Excel spreadsheet down, look at the numbers, and get comfortable with them that this is a workable solution. And it benefits not only us, but the county as well. And as a grandfather, father, I certainly don't want to get that 911 call again and say, they no one is close to you, buddy. So, anyway, thank you for listening to me.
I've been where you're talking about. I had a heart attack in 08. There wasn't no ambulance around. We hauled, you know what, to the Conroe. I mean, I get it. Nobody wants to be in that shape. We also try not to act based on emotions. We're dealing with numbers, and we just want to know that the numbers are feasible. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. I thought there was somebody else. Is there anybody else?
Commissioners,
Who are you, sir?
my name is Brandon Linscomb. I get to be the bad guy today. I'm here to oppose this. My family actually owns about 1,400 acres that's down south. My cousin owns another 1,200 acres or so across, and we've been around since I guess '95. Went through a lot of homeowners association boards, and been in the middle of all this.
James?
James is my dad.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to make it clear that, our family spends a lot of time around there. My parents actually, have a place in Waterwood. We have members forever. And, the question is not whether we want service. Everybody wants service, and that's part of the problem. This whole discussion. I've talked to a lot of people. I've actually got, there's like 5,500, 6,000 acres of individuals that are owners that, that I helped put the petition together. When we got out of this mud district, maybe I probably should give a little history. Like, we weren't forcing people to the mud district had to vote to let us out. And we actually, way back then, it's been 20 years ago, it helped their financial situation because they had, for 30 years, it was actually like 28 years, they were taxing that whole area. And when we got out, that actually allowed them to drop some bonds, and they knew they weren't ever going to provide services, all that kind of good stuff. So,
And just for the record, you and I have never met, never talked to each other.
now, I don't believe I've ever talked to you.
No, sir, you haven't.
I think my dad probably has, historically, way back.
20 years ago, when they did that, they deplanted a bunch of the stuff.
Right. So, what I wanted to point out, part of the problem on this deal is, we definitely, like I said, we've got family that are around there. We want service. The reality is the reason that the feasibility is important. And if you look at the advertisement that's up there, let the voters of the proposed district decide. The law is set up because you've got thousands of landowners. There's like 2,500 lots that are in the developed areas that don't have anybody that can vote on this. And then you've got, close to 6,000 acres of people that are out there that don't have a say in any of this. So you've
All the people that own lots that don't live there, they were not going to be able to vote, is what you're saying.
Right, and then that was the way this was structured, and I will say that it's not accurate as far as, we didn't intentionally not respond. And I've told Jamie this, there's only 20 landowners. If you're worried about the larger area, we could have sent out something by mail to make sure we got notice. But I can tell you, and Jamie does know, that as soon as we found out about this, that we contacted him and told him that we were opposed to it. And it's not that we're opposed. We thought for 20 years we've been paying ESD taxes into the ESD 1. After that mud de-annexation, everybody just assumed that we were in there. And they've said we don't want to pay taxes, we're risky, there's all kinds of, bad mouths.
So you've been paying, it's not paying, I guess.
Sir?
You've been paying all along.
Yeah, for 20 years. As soon as this happened, everybody that was outside of that, within that de-annexed area, started paying. And we didn't, it's a weird situation because we've got a refund that was requested on our behalf, and we've told them, like, we don't want your money back, you know, we're happy with the services, and we just want to be in there. And the reality on all this is, I mean, when it comes down to it, you're only looking at feasibility. I mean, I know you're focused on that. I mean, a lot of the other emotional and all that's important, but I'm here, I mean, I don't want my family not to have somebody come up and pick them up with an ambulance.
Does anybody know how many lots there are in Waterwood that are affected for landowners?
I just know from historical number that there were in the platted areas, since I worked on this for the last 30 years, that there was about 2,500 that were set up from a mud district standpoint for services. And, you know, then everything south of there that never had services, we requested that we get out because there were never any services. I mean, the homeowners association actually even had to agree to convey us the green belts and lots and all that. So I mean, it wasn't something that we forced, and this was something that we worked towards everybody because, I mean, it wasn't anybody's fault. I mean, and it's not, I mean, it was a failed subdivision. It was supposed to be 20,000 acres originally.
I haven't seen it. I've heard there is another petition to join. Is there one or not?
So, yes, sir. I filed the petition, I guess it was, I don't know, last Monday with the existing ESD, which that's another thing. I mean, I know from talking to some of the people that are outside of the mud that they were concerned about not having services because they were told that. And then, you know, I mean, it was recorded at one of the hearings, and I know it was corrected, and I don't believe it was intentional from Jamie, but I mean, it wasn't something that he really understood. But the reality is there were a lot of people that were told, if you don't do this, and I may get slightly off, but it's recorded, you may go back and look on the YouTube video. He said, if you are outside of the mud and you don't support this, then you will not have services. I mean, that was very close to his statement.
It's not true, though.
100% not true. That's why, I mean, what the part that he didn't understand was they thought that because there were not many people that lived in the area that were outside of that original mud, that there wouldn't be enough to actually file a petition. And I mean, the way law is set up is that actually, just if you're less than 100, it just takes a majority.
Majority of the owners, right? It says 50, and then it's or majority of the owners.
Right. And I believe they correct
13 owners, then it takes 7 or whatever.
Right.
Correct? Is that
yes, that's my understanding. And that was the petition, and we've got no pushback from the other ESD. I mean, the reality is, I mean, when you're looking at the feasibility, I mean, they're on record by saying that we're a drag, we're extra we're financial liability for them. They would be much better off if they dropped all of this undeveloped area that doesn't provide any revenue. They would just drop us out of this. And you know, unfortunately, everything has to be focused on feasibility. And I mean, the feasibility on its face, there's just not the funds there. I mean, we can actually say that they're going to fund this, but everybody knows, I mean, I've been around this for a long time, the Waterwood Board can choose that now. They can be very, sincere in that, but several years down the road, that can change. And all of a sudden, we're in a failed ESD because there's no revenue. You can look at the base and you can tell it's straightforward. There's no base to support what they need. Really, if you step back and you look at where we are, and I honestly didn't understand a lot of this until this came up and I started digging in. But if you take where we are now, and volunteer fire departments are difficult, so I get that, but mud has the control. We have been actually in control because it was handed over. But you're talking about years where there were no people from Waterwood Volunteer Fire Department that were able to even respond, or they weren't active on the ESD. So there was if you call for service, they weren't even available. And I'm not blaming them for that. It's just the reality of the demographics. It's not an easy situation anyway. And so what we're asking is that y'all protect us so we don't end up in a ESD that's not feasible.
So out of an area that is, like I said, look, there's so much paperwork on this stuff, but I want to say around 7,500 acres. I think we've established about 1,500 acres of the area is in the current mud district, and the other 6,000, the other 4/5, where the one guy owns it all. But you know, that's a significant interest. You don't want to be in it. You'd rather be in the other, and your reasons. It doesn't matter why. Just like it doesn't matter why they want to do what they want to do.
Well, and I've met and we've discussed, and I mean, I wouldn't, if it wasn't involving us, I wouldn't even be here, and there'd be nobody pushing back and focusing on the fact that this isn't feasible. You know, and there's no doubt that we didn't understand as far as what was going on. I mean, like I said, if it was just didn't involve us, I mean, we know that if calls have been made, that it's not the WIA fire department, and everybody else should understand that as well. There's a history. I know, I mean, today, I mean, I think it's not feasible on its face, but I mean, I think y'all have authority to be able to go back and do further research, and I would recommend, you know, if you don't just think it's not feasible in space today, that you go back and look at those calls and understand the history, because I've been there for, you know, since '95. I've been around this, and it seemed weird because they were saying that, you know, all this expense they've been sending on us and stuff, and there's only one call that I know that I was, you know, even around our area, and the WIA fire department's not the one that showed up, because I think it was during that time that they couldn't even make calls. And then, like I said, I don't even want to have to be here talking about that, because I get that it's difficult for the volunteer fire departments, it's staffing, but you've got the perfect scenario to look at. You've got the same people that are in control, the same people, and it doesn't matter if it's WIA or not WIA. I mean, everybody can tell. I mean, it's WIA's attorney here, it's WIA speaking on this. Without WIA 100% funding this and guaranteeing forever, I mean, then it just can't stand on its own.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused. Mr. Jamie, you had made a statement that everybody that owned property had been notified and nobody come forward. Is that what I heard you say a while ago?
Correct. Everybody that I had contact information for, including Mr. Linscomb and his father, his cousin, I'm not sure, and every property owner that I could gather information on, I believe it was a list of 25 property owners, including Commissioner Jacinto, who owns a small piece of property in that area, were contacted multiple times while we were creating this map for input. This was before our town hall meetings. We invited them to come to the town hall meetings and say, we're trying to form this district. We want to set the map up. We want to know who wants to be in and who wants to be out. The people that came in down there, and yes, we did tell them that there's going to be a loss of services, because that was on council from our attorney. And I'd like him to speak on that for just real briefly, because there's been promises made from people within the county that are in conflict with what we've been told from our attorney. And this is important, because this is the whole reason why we wrote this district. We on advice of ESD 1. They wanted this area.
I understand all that. I've got another question,
Yes, sir.
and it pretty well simplifies everything. I don't understand why we're here and discussing all this time and time and going over and over, when if the people don't want to be in, write a guarantee that they've got 30 days to get out after, if it does pass, and go through the election process and get it over.
So we would do that today.
If the people want to go and petition precinct or the ESD board 1, write it in the guarantee, let's vote on it, go ahead and do it. They got 30 days to get out.
We have no objection to that, but we were told that we can't speak for the board that would be formed. We have no input on this. We're a collection of voters.
That's a good idea, but I don't think there's any way to do that legally.
Well,
That's
not
exactly
today.
Their lawyer agrees with me on that.
Not today, they're not. But why don't we come up with something? We're sitting here. If I were in that situation and you would tell me,
Yeah.
we're gonna do a guarantee that you got 30 days to get out after, if this does pass the election in November, I don't see the big deal.
Well, and,
I don't think it's feasible, and I would want the public to know that if this goes through, in my opinion, I sit here and listen to every side, and I would want the residents to know that there are very few residents in Waterwood. Y'all's responsibility is gonna increase. Don't think it's not. So if you're willing to bear the cost.
That's why we want to look
so,
I don't see what the problem is.
so,
You all should have I'm Mitchell Catine, I am the lawyer for Waterwood, I'm not on the specialized lawyer, that's Kim. But this is a binding resolution, Catine, K-A-T,
First name?
Mitchell.
Mitchell.
And everybody should have received a copy here. Waterwood is committed to making up the budget shortfall. That has been unanimously passed by the board. It is for 5 years.
That's been handy to been presented with that before.
Yeah, we
did all
haven't
this.
seen
I
that.
haven't seen that.
Yep.
We haven't seen any.
this was sent.
Is the copy machine still working in there?
I thought you were talking about a commitment. Somebody, a lawyer wrote it, I'm a lawyer myself. I'm talking about a binding agreement that the board has voted on.
That's the county clerk. There it is. There's a copy right there.
Several of us were there that day we passed it.
And it's to make up the budget shortfall. It is,
Now, that's with the board that's present now.
And it
What
says
about-
for the future board, it's for 5 years.
I'm not so sure that you can, speak for a future board.
Well, you're actually probably correct.
He is.
So it is a commitment that this board wants future boards to uphold that. That is
Well,
correct.
I understand, but we as a board cannot speak for the new commissioners that's coming in and binding.
That is of the commissioners or the board members.
Well, I'm just saying us, but I'm not so sure that you can speak for,
Future.
you can speak and say, we would wish you would.
When did you send this morning?
No, it's dated. It's in a letter that was sent to you.
I don't see it, do you?
A month or two ago.
5 other people gonna do. You can't guarantee what 5 other people.
that is true. That is true. And that is something I would bring up at this point, is one, you don't have to order the election or grant or deny the petition today. So we can get some more information to you if you need to. You've got the binding resolution. You don't have to order the election today. You have to order it by August 19th, I believe, is the deadline to order a general, special election. You've got time.
Was this, I didn't mean to take.
I got that from Commissioner Tuno. But you can have that. Can he have that?
Yeah, I think I have another copy.
Is the copy machine
Well, I
working?
see when it's dated, I just don't remember.
Does the copy machine work?
There's been a lot of stuff. I ain't
Okay.
saying you didn't send it.
Not a problem.
I think we need to reconsider some stuff and get it in place for,
I think you got an excellent idea, but I don't think there's an easier way to do it.
Okay, this is maybe hopefully answer some of those questions.
So it goes to this.
well, the thing about it is, I'm not really concerned if the public is willing to vote for it, and they're not concerned. They've got their choice. The people that don't want to be in it, they've got their choice. Everybody ought to be happy. We're not going to do it today. I say that we need to pass on this and get it wrote up and get it in documentation what we're all in agreement with. And then.
Yeah, I'd like to see that agreement that you, binding resolute, whatever it is.
Be happy to
If it did, I'd like to see if we had put $350,000 into this account, that it can't be touched.
Put it on the ballot.
All right.
After 7 years.
25 years or more,
I
longer
know.
than that man has
So
been
5
a
years is
property
300.
owner, has been funding fire and ambulance service. What makes you think that past history of 25 years would be forgotten in 5? I'm not sure that I can buy a premise that says whatever you did in the past, you're not going to do when I live here. I will remember today. I will remember today, and I hope that every registered voter in this room will recognize the opposition that is being against registered voters who signed a petition, who have come to this meeting. We've come to your commission meeting multiple times. This is my 3rd time to be in this room and at commissioners' meeting. I was here in May when we were over in the little building. Please recognize that you have an obligation to the people who signed the petition, as we are registered voters.
Thank you, ma'am. We're an hour and a half. I think everybody's had a chance to say what they want to say.
Can I have some questions that have been brought up, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No. I'm being leave. I don't know that we're gonna take a vote on this.
I'd make a motion to table this, on what has support in the attorneys to come up
The
with.
deadline is when, Counselor?
I believe it's going to be the 19th.
19th of, great. Well, then,
And it's not that we're saying no, we just need to get some clarification. We're for all the people, not just this group, or for every group that's not here. That make sure that they have got legal representation of our authority. That's all
we're
I
not
have.
gonna wait till the last minute to put it back on there either.
I understand.
We don't roll like that.
Let me just talk about this transfer of territory. The commissioner brought up, the idea of this, some sort of agreement, interlocal agreement, but that board doesn't exist yet, because it hasn't been created. With that said, we could make a commitment, and you guys, the 5 of you, determine who's going to be on that board, and you can certainly figure out who's going to be on that board that's going to make sure that happens. It's not going to happen in 30 days, because it's a petition process, it's a transfer, but you guys are in charge of it. Now, I don't think you want to get up there and say, are you going to make sure this happens too loudly, because that may be a violation of their statement of office, right? But I think y'all know how to do that. So again, and I just also want to point out that it's not a threat, and it's not meant to be a threat. But let's say ESD 2 was created, and these folks had been left out. Okay? They would be people without a country. They would not have emergency services. The county.
We have mutual aid.
Well, the mud district can't spend its money. That's unconstitutional outside of its district, no matter how good the public purpose, just like y'all will pay for roads in the city, and ESD 1 can't do that. Now, maybe they could have a contract. They get these 20 or 25 property owners to pay the tax and get a contract, but that's not an interlocal agreement. So the county, or somebody who has authority, an authority having jurisdiction, would also be the county, would have to contract for that.
They already go to ESD, they're already paying taxes.
No, they're out of ESD.
If they're out of y'all's, yeah, but they still be in ours.
No, there's got to be the annexation, and that is a petition process just like this. What I'm saying is,
If you really want them to have the ability, if this petition were denied, and you filed another petition that put just the guys that want to be in it, that would work as well, wouldn't it, Councilman?
Yes, it goes back to
That's the only point.
Yes.
This guy he's already filed a petition.
I want all these people to get what they want. I want this man to get what he needs, and everybody be protected. That's all I want.
Well, one thing that 775 does say, and I'll have to go back and verify that, but the older created district, if district boundaries overlap, the older created district gets that territory, okay, if there's an overlapping of boundaries. There's not going to be in this case, however, but if This petition moved forward with ESD 1, and this petition, and there's no law on this because it's a statute, and no court has interpreted it yet. But what can happen is they get annexed into ESD 1, we create ESD 2. ESD 1 is the older created district. It was created before ESD 2, so they would fall into that. I can't say for sure that that's going to happen.
You're right. You're right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And that would be, our preference would be for y'all to support, with the existing ESD, the petition that we have, and get that moved on.
That way, y'all are completely.
Then we don't have to worry about anybody trying to do an agreement.
And y'all.
Well, they both have to go forward at the same time,
If we knew all this was
stall it 2 years.
why didn't we go ahead and work this stuff behind the scenes and make it happen?
I mean, we suggested.
The petition was the petition, Commissioner.
I know, but I'm just saying, I mean, I tried to set up a meeting with you and. Yes, sir. Well, after April 4th, once we submitted it, after we had solicited all the info we could get. That's not what he's saying right now. He's saying.
You got some bad information.
No, he's correct.
The public hearing has come to a close. Item number 21, is there any need to take action? We've paid the bills already. Can I get a motion? Do I have a second? All in favor say aye. We'll see y'all before
I may not say that for myself.
August 19th. Thank you, councilors.